I've written about this a little bit before, that he reminds me a lot of the two athletes he reminds me the most of are probably Ricky Ponting, right?
Mm.
And the other one is from outside cricket is Michael Jordan. So you didn't
Yes, a
didn't get to
lot
the
like
levels
Michael
of
Jordan.
Michael Jordan, but you go
Mm.
back and you watch The Last Dance. Michael Jordan just didn't really understand why people couldn't do what he did, because in his
Correct.
mind
Correct.
he was willing himself to be able to do that. So why can't you will yourself to be able to do that? And so it's a
Bang on.
really tough thing. And then also it's I think there are a lot of players. I've never talked to a player who didn't play to win, right? Like they all play to win, but there's a
Yes.
scale, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a scale that for people like Ponting and Jordan and Virat actually tips over into, it's not actually about wanting to win anymore. It's about not wanting to lose. Like that fierce desperation of like not wanting to be on the wrong side of this thing. And I think it's so interesting to me that Ponting and Kohli's careers are so similar when you look at Test cricket, right? They come in as the younger players. They're good, but they're not dominant. They don't, they don't completely dominate for a long, long time. And then their athleticism matches their brain for about 6 or 7 years, and they have a peak of like that. I mean, Ponting and Kohli have had two of
Immense
the best Test
magnitudes.
peaks. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane when you look at how great they were for that 6 or 7 year period.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like that drains them. And once they become adults and they have other things to worry about in life, and it's not just about scoring that next run, and maybe their athleticism drops off a little bit as they get into their 30s, they both have big dips. The difference is that Ponting's dip comes in a period where everyone's averaging 45 at Test cricket. So his dip looks okay on paper, but if you were watching it live, it was quite clear that Ponting was finished. Whereas Kohli's comes when no one's making runs anywhere, right? So his dip looks even more dramatic.
Even
and I think
worse,
we've done the analysis on this before. It's quite similar. But I think playing with that kind of intensity, I mean, Michael Jordan retired in the middle of his career, right? Like there is an element of that. I think you can only push that intensity also so far. Do you know what I mean? Like it does drain you in a way that perhaps playing in a more even keeled way of other great batters doesn't.
So there are a couple of points I want to make here. You said it absolutely right? When you said that when they are adult, as in for me, how I perceive that is that, say for example, they experience things that they're deeply passionate about, like the sport that they're playing, and that means as much to them. Suddenly they operate in that space. For example, as far as Virat is concerned, his family, his marriage, his kids, and all of that. He worked from that same deeply passionate place for that. And so suddenly he had to split himself into two, and then the balance went off. And I don't know, in depth about Ponting, so I can't speak to that. But to this, as from an observational point of view, this is what I think could have happened, where he had to split himself up into two, draw energies there. And simultaneously, there was a lot of things happening within cricket as well, in the ecosystem of captaincy, change in power, shift in power. He captaincy, went past him and then went to Rohit, and so there was a power shift as well. So the dynamics of all that also changed. So a lot of things kind of happened simultaneously, and I think that kind of took a toll. And and then you could tell that he was soul searching for a year or so, right? And it wasn't cricket. I think it was things in the periphery of cricket, and perhaps priorities in life as far as family, marriage, and children are concerned. So all of those aspects, I think, perhaps kind of took precedence as well, and he was trying to split himself between the two. And I can empathize with that. I think it's quite hard to do, and it takes a while to find yourself. I think as men, when we are truly passionate about something, and then something else comes into our life where we're very self-aware as people, but when you have to make space for that, right, that sometimes eats into the space of your first passion. And then suddenly you're trying to find a way to balance it, right? And you go off balance, and then somehow you find a way to find that middle ground, right? And I think to his credit and to their credit, both Anushka and Virat tried their best to find a balance with it. And that's why I think they were so stoically there for each other, and so ferociously defending each other and being there for each other, because they understood perhaps the the intensity of who he was as an athlete, and the intensity he brought into who he was as a husband and father and a family man, and to kind of find that balance so that he could keep both going for as long as possible,
I
and
think that the thing is, and there's no, it's really hard to have this conversation with him now, but I think the thing is that you need to understand that there's only one bucket that you're drawing from. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
once he got to the point where he was so involved with all these brands, right? Like he becomes the brand person. He's then so involved with RCB. I know he pushed back eventually against RCB, but he's not just an Indian batter. He's also the Indian captain. As you said, he's got the fatherhood. He starts to get into progressive causes and all these different things, right? The bucket doesn't get bigger because you
No.
start to look grander. I think when he started to go through his dip the first time, I wrote an article where I basically said, I'm sure he's training just as hard as he used to, right? I'm
100%.
sure he believes he's doing exactly what he did before, but there's no way that there can't be an overall drain on that. And a friend of his who'd worked with him quite a bit was just like, yeah, it's just too much. And he can't pull back because he has the same intensity for life that he once had for batting. And so the two are sort of coming together.